Hi guys. So I want to walk through the peer review worksheet with you guys. This is a really important assignment to help your peers move forward, both for Project 1, Project 2, and then the ePortfolio. Project 1 and Project 2, the worksheets look pretty similar. ePortfolio is a little bit different. So I wanted to take the opportunity and kind of walk you through this just so you would feel very confident going into this assignment. I know a lot of times I get feedback that, oh, I'm not a writing expert, so how am I supposed to get feedback on this? So really what's important here is to understand the importance of the reader response. So when you are crafting a written work, you want to ultimately write it for the audience, right? So that you're able to get the ultimate reaction, what you want out of the reader. So what you're able to do here in this peer review assignment is just offer to the author how his or her way of expressing their ideas really led you to agree, to disagree, to feel strongly. And so by offering, again, kind of your feedback, you're really helping them get just an objective / subjective point of view on what they were able to accomplish in their work. So again, you don't need to be an expert, but you do need to be detailed. So let's go through the worksheet together, okay? All right, so number one thing that I wanted to talk about here is just to make sure throughout the worksheet, we've gone through and separated these questions so where they're in multiple lines. So make sure that when there are multiple sections that you are answering each one of these. So under number one, there are 3 questions or things that you'll need to respond to. First, do the title and introduction paragraph clearly introduce the analysis? Second, do they make you, the reader, want to read on? And then third, if not, why? And what might the author do to make the analysis more engaging for the audience? So again, you'll need to make sure they're answering all 3 portions of that question in order to gain full credit for it. All right, so number 2, after reading the introduction, what is the issue the author is analyzing? Why is it important and who are the stakeholders? So the reason that we ask you to restate this information is just to make sure that what the author is trying to portray through their words is actually what happens for you as a reader when you're reading it. Because sometimes as writers, we think we are communicating our ideas very clearly. Often, though, the reader has a completely different perspective. So by restating what you think the major claims are, the stakeholders, the thesis, and so on, throughout this worksheet, what you're doing is you're helping the author understand whether or not they were able to clearly portray their ideas to you. The other portion here that I wanted to highlight, how might the author provide greater clarity in the introduction? So there are several questions throughout this worksheet that will ask you to provide ideas or inspiration if you notice an element being reviewed isn't appealing or is missing. And again, what we're trying to do is just make sure that you're not saying, yes, it worked, or no, it didn't work, but that you're really being specific and saying, well, here's, the segments that really worked for me. Here are, the sentence or 2 that I felt confused about when I was reading it. Here's a paragraph that I wasn't sure how it related to your thesis statement. So the more specific you can be in your feedback, especially because, again, in an online course, we're not able to sit there and have dialogue back and forth. So you want to make sure that you are as clear and concise in the feedback that you're offering to your peer because, again, there's not enough time for them to go back and really ask a lot of questions throughout the revision process. So by using specific examples from their paper and giving specific examples of ways that you think it might be improved, that's really going to be very helpful in the peer review process. Again, here I just wanted to call out this part of the question. Comment on areas that you like as well as those that need improving in the space below. So again, you'll need to be very specific in order to answer this question, regardless of whether or not you thought the information was provided or not. So what I say here is by including specific areas that worked well for you, the reader, you're encouraging the author to use that same strategy again in other parts of the paper. So it's okay to say, hey, this was really, really good, but you need to say what was really, really good and why it was really, really good. Otherwise, the author isn't quite sure of what exactly you liked so much and how they could replicate that through other parts of their paper. Then, by including specific areas that didn't work for you as a reader, you are providing a subjective reader's response to the author. So this makes any advice that you may offer come off as more objective because you're simply stating how you as the reader felt while you were reading it. So again, you don't need to be an expert, you just need to be honest and you need to be specific. All right, so here again, I just wanted to point out this question: how does the author integrate those perspectives, and is it effective? So this is another area implying necessary specificity. You need to point out the specific ways in which the author did or did not integrate multiple perspectives. So it's not enough to just say, no, they were not included, or yes, you did a great job including them. You need to say exactly how they included them, why you thought it worked really well, or how you thought it might be improved in order to gain A, full credit for this, and then B, the author's trust enough to make those necessary revisions. Again, here, what is effective, what needs improvement? Be sure to answer both parts of this question. So what worked well for you as a reader and what did not? It's very, very, very rare that you will agree with or appreciate 100% of someone else's work. Most of the time, there will be at least, hopefully, one question come up if you're reading critically. So be sure on these sort of questions that you are providing both sides of the coin or both sides of the story here. What you liked specifically that worked well and what specifically you did not like and how that might be improved. All right, so the next few questions are pretty similar, and then we get into the actually, before we get into the infographic, we have one more about the APA. So this is another one where I get a lot of comments that, oh, I'm not very familiar with APA. So what we tried to do this time is provide you with this link to the Purdue OWL website. And this is basically an example APA paper that will show you exactly what a title page should look like. What's the difference between a running header on page 1 and the header that's on the rest of the paper? What in-text citation should look like, and what a references page should look like. So again, you don't need to be an expert here. You just have to be able to click on the link and compare and contrast your peer's paper with the example paper, and then be sure you're being specific in which areas you thought need some improvement there. All right, so moving on to the infographic. So sometimes, hopefully not for this course, but sometimes essential pieces like the interviews or the infographic might be left out on the rough draft. However, we don't really want to just say, oh, well, it's not included, so I'm not going to answer it. Again, that's not very helpful. So for questions 11 and 12, these are pretty specific about what the infographic is going to ask of you. So these two, if your peer does not include an infographic with the rough draft, you are free to skip these two. However, you will need to be sure you answer question 13. So question 13 says, does the infographic clearly highlight the main ideas from the written text? What is effective? What needs improvement? And then, if the author does not currently have an infographic, what are a couple of ways you think they might visually represent the information analyzed in the paper? So again, remember, sometimes we all get writer's block, sometimes we hit a wall, sometimes we're rushed and run out of time. So this is a great opportunity to really demonstrate responsibility and engagement with your peers' work, and really help provide, again, like I said, some inspiration to help move them forward in their process there. So again, make sure if the infographic is not included that you are at least answering question 13. Otherwise, if the infographic is included, first, you'll want to make sure you are addressing each of the 8 principles from Bull's article, which again, we hyperlinked here for your convenience. And then second, that you're going over the 4 main visual design elements: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And they're answering, again, things that were effective and things that need improvement for each one of those. Okay, lastly, I just want to explain what we mean by global issues. So this is kind of a what I call composition speak. But global issues are the larger, overarching, content-focused areas. In contrast, surface or sentence level areas, those are the typos, grammatical mistakes, things like that can come up in the paper. So in this question for number 14, what you'll want to do is really focus on, were there any other elements that for you as a reader stuck out that A, were either really good and that you really liked, again, as encouragement so that the author can replicate those in other sections of the paper, or B, were there any areas for you as a reader that just either didn't make a lot of sense or didn't connect to the ultimate idea, or might just need a little bit further explanation. So question 14 is your opportunity to provide that sort of feedback outside of the questions that have already been answered. Again, this is a question on the worksheet. Each peer review you submit is worth 15 points for a total of 30 for the 2 peer reviews that you're required to submit. So make sure you don't leave this question empty. That would be an automatic miss of a point, okay? So here again, this is just asking for your objective read or response on things that you thought did or did not go well and what the author could do to improve that. All right, guys, good luck on this first round of peer review. I think you'll find it really helpful in 2 senses. First, that you will be able to help your peer, but then second, by reflecting on other people's work, I think you'll really start to see some of these elements in your own work and how you can use some of the feedback they're offering to other people in your own work as well. So it's a really cool exercise that both helps other people, but also helps yourself. So again, let me know if you have any other questions, and I look forward to reading your peer reviews.